Hey everyone, and welcome to Boston Autoblog. I'm going to make sure this intro is quick and simple. You guys know and remember that I featured the Bronco Sport Badlands last month, and you guys really enjoyed that review and vehicle. You've asked me to come back to Acton Ford to take a look at a trim with the 1.5-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine to see how it compares to the 2-liter found under the hood of the Badlands. And well, I've listened to your messages, your DMs, and your questions. Also, as you guys know, I love doing these feature videos where we take a look at multiple trims, and that's exactly why I am back at the dealership to take a look at the Big Bend. Now, Ford has done an amazing job of making this vehicle cool, fun, but also very affordable. This model we have today is right around $32,000, provides a great value for the price, and we're going to take a look at the features this vehicle comes with. So in this video, we're going to take a quick look at the Big Bend, see how it compares to the top trim in the lineup, and also see why, if you're looking to buy a crossover that's fun, engaging, but also rugged at around $30,000, then maybe buying a Bronco Sport might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this review, I'd like to thank Acton Ford in Acton, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Ford inventory. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. If you're a car shopper with a budget around $30,000, there's no shortage of crossovers available to you. But finding a brand new off-road worthy SUV in this price range is like searching for a needle in a haystack. Traditionally, you'd probably be at a Jeep dealer and possibly cross-shopping a Renegade and Compass. But in 2021, we now have the Ford Bronco Sport to add a new twist to this segment, giving us a fun and rugged vehicle that's also relatively affordable. As we saw back in late 2020, this subcompact crossover was well thought out and designed by Ford. And despite not being the real Bronco everyone has been waiting for over the last 2 years, it's still an eye-catching product and worthy competitor to any adventurous SUV in this market. Starting off with pricing, the Bronco Sport Big Bend comes in at $28,320. But with our model having a few additional features, you're looking at spending just over $32,000. We can't continue on without addressing that the Bronco Sport is in fact closely related to the Escape, which it shares platforms with. Dimensions, however, differ greatly, and rather than being considered a compact crossover, the Bronco Sport is actually the same size as a Jeep Compass and Kia Seltos. But where Ford has drawn attention is with the higher roofline that's going to provide many benefits for the occupants of this SUV, while also being more practical. One thing to keep in mind if you are looking at buying a Big Bend, ground clearance comes in at 7.8 inches. But for better versatility, the Badlands offers an additional inch if you opt for the 29-inch tires. Taking a glance at the road presence of the Bronco Sport, most of the excitement behind this crossover is that the design is inspired from previous generations, but with a modern interpretation. Many subcompact SUVs in this price range have a very uninspiring look, leaving much more to be desired. However, more importantly is that buyers can easily differentiate the Sport from the Ford Escape, as its youthful and rugged characteristics are drawing in a new demographic to the Ford brand. On the Big Bend, you'll have LED headlights and fog lights that'll provide better illumination at night. But it also gives the Bronco Sport an upscale look, despite the price tag. Moving over to the side profile, this Bronco Sport is sitting on the optional 18-inch machine face aluminum ebony black painted wheels for a more aggressive appearance. As with all trims, you'll have a badge to symbolize the trim you purchased, which can be found on the driver and front passenger doors to add a bit more character to this crossover. And unlike most vehicles, which have body color folding side mirrors with turn signal indicators, we have plastic covers on this model to reflect the ruggedness of the Bronco Sport, but you will have blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, there's no significant differences compared to the Badlands we checked out recently, but the squared off design and LED taillights just add a baby Land Rover vibe, but also gives this small SUV a futuristic road presence. Of course, to insinuate off-road capability, plastic cladding makes its way to the rear fascia. And if you intend to take this crossover down the path less traveled, the overall ruggedness of the design for the Bronco Sport begs you to get this vehicle dirty. Under the hood, the Big Bend is powered by a 1.5-liter EcoBoost 3-cylinder engine that puts out 181 horsepower and 190 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. While this isn't the most powerful or exciting engine that Ford offers, the fact that we have a true automatic transmission over a CVT makes the driving experience far and away better than some rivals. Of course, if you're looking for something more engaging, spending the extra money for a Badlands will get you a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, providing improved performance. For the drivetrain, 4-wheel drive will come standard, unlike the Ford Escape it's based on, which also offers front-wheel drive. For fuel economy, you can expect to receive right around 25 miles per gallon in the city and 28 miles per gallon on the highway. Inside, we're greeted by manually adjustable cloth seats for both the driver and passenger. But if you offer the $1,600 Big Bend package, you'll receive an 8-way power adjustable driver seat, heated front seats, a leather-wrapped steering wheel, a power moonroof, a reverse sensing system, and a wireless phone charging pad, which will all enhance your experience behind the wheel of the Bronco Sport. In front of you, a digital display in the center of the instrument cluster will provide a variety of information. However, it won't be as in-depth as the screen we saw in the Badlands. Moving over to the infotainment system, you'll have an 8-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. And for our model, we have the optional voice-activated navigation system. As with all current vehicles in the lineup, we do have Ford's Sync 3 system, and overall, this user interface is very easy to use and pretty responsive. You'll have a rear backup camera with trajectory to go along with the rear cross traffic alert to make backing out of parking spots much safer. Below, you'll find the dials and buttons for the climate control settings and front and rear defrosters. And as we inch closer to the center console, you'll have a cubby for a smartphone, a USB and USB-C input, and a 12-volt outlet. Just like we saw in the Badlands, you will have GOAT modes to take on any terrain you encounter. And as we've seen with most new Ford vehicles, a rotary dial for the gear selector helps maximize the space found up front, while also giving the Bronco Sport a more futuristic interior layout. And rounding out the front seating area, for the center storage compartment, you'll have enough room for a smartphone and smaller items. Now, since there's no difference when it comes to rear legroom with the Big Bend compared to the Badlands, we're going to overlook the second row seats. But I do want to point out that you do get a USB-C and USB input, 2 rear air vents, and also a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now, of course, since we do not have a moonroof on this model, we're going to have a lot more headroom to work with here. So if you do have taller passengers in the back, I think they're not going to have an issue with headroom. It's just going to be legroom. And again, I'm going to leave the link in the description below so you can watch the Badlands review to see how I fit at 5'5" in the second row of the Bronco Sport. Now, coming around to the back, just like with the Badlands review, you will have the ability to open up the rear window so you can throw smaller items in the back. And one thing I want to point out later on with the cargo space that we do have the cargo management system, which is a small shelf that you can just throw smaller items on. You don't need to open up the rear tailgate, which I think is pretty cool. But also this adds to the fun factor of the Bronco Sport. It gives you that Jeep vibe, in my opinion, and we just don't see this anymore in the automotive industry. Then taking a look at the rear cargo space, you're going to have right around 32.5 cubic feet of rear cargo room, which is class leading. There is no subcompact crossover that comes anywhere close to what the Ford Bronco Sport has to offer. Now with the cargo management system, it divides up this cargo area evenly, And what I like too with this top shelf, I could put my camera gear up here and assemble it and then be right outside and start filming this vehicle. I think it's really cool to have. So if you are going rock climbing or you're going hiking, you can have some of your more smaller items at the top, and you can actually have like a table that you can assemble everything, get all your gear ready to go. I just think that what Ford has done here is that they've made a vehicle that fits the lifestyles of active Americans, people who go out all the time, people who are looking for adventure, and I absolutely love to see that from a brand that's now starting to focus on a new demographic of consumers. And then with the second row seats folded, that space more than doubles in size to right around 65 cubic feet. So overall, what Ford has done here is that they've made a very practical crossover at a very affordable price range that's also cool and fun to drive. You don't need to feel embarrassed driving this thing around. It draws quite a lot of attention. And then of course, since I forgot about this, you do get a bottle opener, which is great if you are going to the beach or you're out in the countryside, in the mountains somewhere, and you're having a good time with some friends or family. And also we have LED lights on the tailgate, which is perfect for if you are going camping. There's going to be no street lights, so you're going to need some additional lighting to help you find your gear. So overall, I love the vibe of this vehicle. It makes it more adventurous and fun. And in a segment where we kind of get tired of seeing the same old design, it's great to see that Ford has given us something that's fun and enjoyable at a very affordable price range. All right, so let's take the Big Bend out for a test drive to see how it compares to the Badlands that we reviewed last month, but also see how it compares to, say, a Ford Escape. Now, part of me feels a bit of regret to test drive the Badlands before the Big Bend, because I feel as though this isn't as nice as the Badlands. I miss the leather seats. I miss the leather wrapped steering wheel. I miss all of that. Even though this is the same layout, same interior, I just kind of miss those extra creature comforts. But one thing that hasn't changed though is the driving dynamics and just how high up off the ground you really feel in this vehicle. It's the seating position that really gets to me, because in the Ford Escape you feel as though you're sitting somewhat closer to the ground. It feels more car-like, and I think today's Ford Escape, the current generation, is really a crossover version of the Ford Focus. The Ford Focus is no longer with us. I think that's why Ford really gave the Escape a Focus-like design to it. Now, many enthusiasts can throw up their arms in the air and say, oh, you know, the Bronco Sport is built in the Ford Escape platform. It's not the real Bronco. And they can get very critical and just say that it's like every other subcompact crossover on the market. And they're all of a sudden very disappointed at what Ford has done. And I'm sitting here thinking, what are you talking about? This is a very inspiring crossover. In fact, a Jeep Renegade just drove by, and I'll tell you, I'd rather be sitting in this than that car from Jeep. But I think it really just comes down to the fact that when you get behind the wheel, you sit so high up off the ground. And I think that's what I like the most about it. It gives me that feeling of being in a much bigger crossover than in reality. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of traffic right now. I understand it is rush hour, but I've never seen traffic like this in the last 9-10 months. So unfortunately, we really can't get too crazy with the driving today, but let's see a little bit of the acceleration here with the 1.5. One thing I will say is that the 2-liter is so much better. It's more refined. It's definitely quicker for sure, and that's a given. But for what this engine is, I think it's most certainly enough. Now, the one thing I do love about the 1.5 is that it's so quiet. And I think that's what's really important for Ford. You've given us a very affordable product. You've given us a very affordable SUV, but does it feel like that on the interior? And when it comes to road noise, it's actually a very quiet cabin, and I like that. I thought that maybe the Badlands, it was just because of the top trim, but this is actually very well insulated. Now, I will say though, with the 3-cylinder, performance isn't as exhilarating as the turbocharged 4-cylinder, but it gets up to speed pretty nicely. Obviously, you're not going to be breaking any speed records with this car, but that's not what the Bronco Sport is built for. I will say though, I am very impressed with what this vehicle has to offer. You have plenty of front vision to work with here. You have a nice seating position. It gives you a nice commanding feel of this crossover, and I personally think even with the 1.5, it's more inspiring to drive than the Ford Escape. Now, even though this is my second time driving this SUV, it does take a few minutes to get used to the fact that the hood is extended and squared off. Because if you drive a Ford Escape, it has more of that car-like feel, whereas this is a true SUV. Now, one of the reasons why I am very excited about this vehicle is because for $30,000, I feel as though I'm getting quite a lot. I understand. There's no leather-wrapped steering wheel, you have hard-touch plastic, and I get the criticism. I understand where people are coming from, where, oh, it doesn't feel as refined as I'd like it at $30,000. But think about it though, at $30,000, we have an off-road worthy SUV. We have a vehicle that looks cool, looks awesome. Now, I understand, I've talked to one of the sales reps here at Acton Ford, and he says that every single person that walks into the dealership is looking for an Outer Banks, or they're looking for the Badlands. They're not going for a Big Bend. They're not going for the lower trims. And he says, this is the first vehicle I've ever sold that people are actually looking for the top trim rather than the more affordable options. He's been in the industry for over a decade, and this is the first time. So that tells me exactly who's looking at buying this vehicle. They want some refinement. They want the creature comforts, and that's why I miss the Badlands. But my point with the Bronco Sport is that Ford didn't necessarily need to go all out to have a vehicle that was better or is better than a Jeep product, that's better than the Jeep Compass or the Jeep Renegade. They don't need to go too crazy with it. And I think even with the Big Bend, they've done a nice job with this vehicle that you feel as though you're getting enough value for the price. Now, what I will say though is that you definitely feel the body roll even at lower speeds, and that's really because the Bronco Sport does not have a lower center of gravity. It's meant to be off-road. It's meant to be a rugged vehicle. It's also a vehicle that you'd be driving during the winter and having a lot of fun in. You'd have that confidence that you could take this on unplowed roads or maybe even dirt roads and just have a lot of fun. I think that's what the Bronco Sport is all about. I think people are trying to make it out to be something that's not. And I think if you see what Ford is offering here at $30,000 to $32,000, I think you're going to be very impressed with what Ford has done. But at the end of the day though, I highly recommend following in the footsteps of the consumers that are walking in the doors of Acton Ford and going more upmarket. Go with an Outer Banks, go with a Badlands. And usually I would say, well, the lower trims provide just enough. And I do think that at $32,000 it provides a lot of value for the price. But at $36,000 to $37,000, the Badlands goes one step further. You have the performance, you have the extra features, you have the nicer leather materials, and I just think that for under $40,000, you're getting a great bang for your buck. And I also think that with the Badlands, there's just not another crossover out there that truly competes with what Ford has to offer. So I think if you're looking for something that's cool, fun, and enjoyable to drive, go with the Badlands. But I think that if you want to have an off-road worthy crossover that is fuel efficient, that's also practical as well, then maybe going with a Big Bend trim might be a good decision. But I definitely, as a car enthusiast, would go with a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you guys next time.